Hello and welcome back to The Big Stage, brought to you by Betting Expert. This is the show where we'll go through the 10 Premier League fixtures of Game Week 12 and give you the best bets from some of the best names in the business. So just to bring in our guests, we are joined by Dan Jenkins of Betting Expert, as well as Rory Jennings, broadcaster, and the man with all the know-how when it comes to injuries, Ben Dinnery. Now, what a week it's been. I mean, the international break is now finally over. We're back to Premier League business. And there's been the managerial merry-go-round has been in full swing. Steven Gerrard now at Aston Villa, Eddie Howe at Newcastle, and Dean Smith, of course, at Norwich. So we're going to go into this, the new manager bounce. Does it exist? Well, Dan Jenkins has gone deep into the stats to talk about this. So Dan, take it away. Over to you. What can we take from the new manager bounce?
Yeah, so I've just published a piece on the news section exploring this. I looked at mid-season managerial appointments in the Premier League over the last 5.5 seasons. Found that, there is an immediate increase in performance. Win percentage, points per game, and goals for all increase. Goals against goes down. New managers win 33% of their first league matches in charge, which I think is pretty good considering most managerial changes happen at the bottom of the table. The most interesting part of all this is in the betting markets because there is value. If you would have backed every new permanent manager to win their first match in charge, you'd have made a profit of plus 9.14% over the last 4.5 seasons. Backing them on the Asian handicap market had a 52% win rate. The problem is that after that first game, the results kind of tank. Backing managers to win their second matches in charge had profitability of minus 35%. So my advice is, back the new managers bounce, but only for that first match.
So let's have the rest of the panel's thoughts on this. So Ben, let's start with you, talking about Newcastle's signing of Eddie Howe. First of all, what do you make of it and how do you think it's going to improve Newcastle's season?
It seems like the majority of the supporters have got what they wanted. Steve Bruce is gone. And I like the appointment of Eddie Howe. I prefer him over Unai Emery and some of the other names that we've been linked in. Steven Gerrard being one of those that was talked about in and around the club. Let's not forget Newcastle are in a position that we're in because we're just not very good. But what Eddie Howe will do is, he will get us, what we lack in quality. He will get us to work hard, that commitment, that work rate. We will match our opponents. We will try and outrun them. And I think that's really what we need to do. We've seen, I've heard whisperings from the training ground that he's had them in early, over the break. He's been working them really, really hard. So I'm excited by the prospect of Eddie Howe, and I'll gladly take those 3 points against Brentford this weekend.
Over to you, Rory, as well. I know with Chelsea as well, there's a bit of a history with Steven Gerrard. But what do you make of that appointment for Aston Villa and seeing Gerrard back in the Premier League?
I think it's a good appointment for Villa. I think it's quite an exciting one, and I think that can be enough to just change the culture. I think they've been on a terrible run, so they needed something to change. I think what Gerrard achieved at Glasgow Rangers is sometimes seen in a slightly more favourable light than it deserves. I think he won one trophy out of the 9 that he competed for, but the one that he won was the one that they were so desperate to win. So I think he's a good appointment. I like Steven Gerrard back in the Premier League. It feels like it, if nothing else, it will elevate expectation, belief, and interest in Aston Villa. And I think that when you look at their team, they've got some really good players there. And if Gerrard can find a rhythm, get them playing well, there's no way they'll go down.
Well, this is for me, just speaking as an Aston Villa fan as well, I kind of put myself in the players' shoes a little bit. And, if they've got aspirations to improve their career, then who better to look up to than someone that's won the Champions League? I know one slip away from the Premier League title, but, he's someone that's been there and done it. So really the players should be taking inspiration from that. One key stat to look at as well, one key fixture I think is quite interesting as well. Villa do take on Liverpool. So I wonder, Rory, if you've got a take on how Liverpool fans will receive Gerrard in the kind of opposition dugout, do you think?
Yeah, they will definitely receive him with unilateral partisan support. They idolise him. They are fully aware of everything he contributed to them. He was a sensational player. I think he probably, in fact, definitely makes it into a Liverpool all-time 11. And when you think of some of the players that they've had and some of the successful eras that they've had, the fact that you can say that about Steven Gerrard shows you quite how important he was to them. I imagine that for certainly before the match and certainly after the match, assuming that the result goes Liverpool's way, the cop will be serenading with the Steve Gerrard song.
Now you can actually get an outside bet of 40-1 on Villa to beat Liverpool both home and away in the Premier League. Pretty sure that's not going to happen, but I just wanted to highlight that as special. Now, Ben, I just wanted to get your thoughts as well on that Gerrard appointment. You think maybe he's a little bit unproven, and do you think he's not going to do as well as many might expect?
I mean, look, it's easy to get carried away at big appointment, but he's been away from the Premier League. A lot has changed and evolved in that time that he's been, left Liverpool. And look, you take his success with a little bit of pinch of salt. For me at Rangers, you question who are the big teams. They're one of the big powerhouses, the juggernaut, along with Celtic, and the level of expectation is going to be completely different. I think it will take time. We've already heard from Steven Gerrard. He'll be focusing on, Aston Villa have been creating opportunities. The stats will tell you that the issues that they've got aren't necessarily going forward. It's at the back. And inherently, he'd done a pretty good job at Rangers with that. But like I say, I think it will take a little bit of time, and I'll reserve judgment on Steven Gerrard.
Fair enough. I just wanted to open up to the floor as well, to the group. I mean, which manager do we think is going to perform the best out of those three new appointments? Maybe start off with you, Dan, from a betting perspective.
I mean, I do quite like Steven Gerrard. I think it's a pretty good appointment. The thing is, it can't get any worse. They've lost their last 5, and the next couple of fixtures I think are pretty palatable. I'm going to back them to win their next 2 matches, so I go for Gerrard in the immediate term, and then maybe Dean Smith looking 2 or 3 years down the line.
Yeah, and that's it. And for you, Rory, as well, do you think maybe Dean Smith's an appointment that they're looking almost to next season, Norwich, just to get them out of the Championship even?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, for Dean Smith, because he's had no time out whatsoever. He's about to face the same club that he faced. I think his last game for Villa was Southampton, and now he's going to face Southampton again in the next match week. So it's a very weird circumstance. I'm inclined to say, out of who will do the best out of the 3, I'm inclined to go Gerrard as well. But I think aspirations are different, aren't they? So I feel like Dean Smith is also a very solid appointment. I think Dean Smith is a educated one, and long term, I think that Dean Smith could go down, come back up, and then has the ability to establish Norwich as a Premier League club. I think he could actually be the answer to that question.
Well, also, Ben, I just want to touch on another special actually in regards to Eddie Howe. It's actually 7-1 for Newcastle to get relegated this season and then to be promoted next season. So, I mean, is that kind of the way? I know you don't want to think about relegation now, but is that kind of in mind, do you think, with Newcastle?
I hope not. I hope we'll just have enough. I think we will just have enough to stay up. Maybe 14th to 17th would be, realistic for us this season. We'll see how results go over the coming game weeks. We're approaching a very busy fixture period, and if needs be, we can dip into the market in January. Cash will not be a problem. So I think maybe 2 or 3 additions to that squad, and also keeping the likes of Alan Saint-Maxim fit and Callum Wilson. That's going to be imperative if we want to, secure our top flight status.
And that's it. I mean, he's managed a few of those players before as well, like Callum Wilson, of course, Ryan Fraser potentially coming in a bit more prominent, do you think? Now, given the experience of Bournemouth, of course.
I mean, it'd be an interesting one with Ryan Fraser. Of course, he sort of left Bournemouth on that cloud of uncertainty, having refused to sign that contract extension during Project Restart. I mean, he didn't join up with the Scotland squad recently, and I wonder if that was just maybe his way of offering a bit of an olive branch. And he could be one of the players, one of those fringe players, that comes to the fore under Eddie Howe. I hope so, because I do really like Ryan Fraser. But, there's a couple of players we put all our eggs in the Joe Willock basket this season. We blew all our budget on him. That hasn't quite paid off as his loan spell had. He picked up a hip issue. He's been managing a toe problem. So, if this international break has served him well, then we could see a few players who are coming back into form, maybe full fitness, and that will, benefit Eddie Howe and hopefully the club.
All right, then let's just sum up kind of the new manager specials. And Dan, you've got a really interesting bet for the new managers. Just take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 new managers have got pretty palatable fixtures for their first games. They've all got a really good chance of winning, but the best bet I have is for Villa and Newcastle to win, but for Norwich with plus half a goal in the Asian handicap market. That's at 12.0 with Bet365.
So looking like a pretty secure bet based on our predictions so far, but we'll get to them in more detail later on in the show. But now we're going to talk about the first feature match, and that is going to be Leicester against Chelsea. So the early kickoff on Saturday is Leicester against Chelsea at the King Power. The odds are suggesting it should be a pretty comfortable win for Chelsea. They are odds-on favourites to get this win. But Ben, let's just have a little bit of an injury update. Romelu Lukaku was seen in training. Am I right in thinking that? And could he even feature on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the realistic expectation would be maybe Lukaku from the bench. There had been talk that prior to the international break that Roberto Martinez may calling up to the Belgium squad. And you're right, he has been spotted in training. He was doing some straight line running. So that's been over a week now. Now, providing he's able to step up that, introduce some twisting and turning, those more dynamic, movements to put the stress through the ankle. As long as there's no reaction, then I can firmly see Lukaku come back in. Like I said, for me, it would be the bench. It's in and around a month since he last played competitively. And Chelsea have got a big week ahead of them. 3 big games.
Yeah, and for you, Rory, I mean, in his absence and also Timo Werner's absence, I mean, how have Chelsea been getting on from your point of view? And, have they been slipping up a little bit without them?
Well, do you know what's weird, Joe? I've been constantly flagging how vulnerable I feel like Chelsea are, but it almost looks like nonsense because we keep winning. But there does, to me, feel like there's sort of an underbelly that isn't as robust as it could be. And I am desperate for Lukaku to play in this game. Absolutely desperate. I think without him, we're a totally different team. He is our goal-scoring threat. Even if he's not on the score sheet, he is the nuisance in the box. He is the person that creates space for others, brings everyone else into play. So we desperately need him. But I'm slightly worried about this one. I don't know if it's a hangover from last year, but Leicester were a problem for Chelsea last year. They were the reason, or they were the final game at least, that resulted in Frank Lampard's demise. We got battered up there. In this corresponding fixture last year, it was Frank Lampard's last game in the league for Chelsea. And it was terrible. Like, we couldn't get the ball off them. They were electric. And then they obviously beat us in the cup final. So I'm desperate to get something over them. I feel like we owe them one massively. But I also feel like there is a weakness in this Chelsea team. And if Brendan Rodgers does get it right, I just find it very difficult to see how this one will go. It could go either way.
Well, that's it. I mean, Leicester have only lost 1 of their last 6 as well, so they seem to be in decent form themselves. But Ben, can we just have a little bit of an injury update in regards to Yuri Tielemans? I mean, how vital will his absence be for this Leicester side?
Yeah, massive. He's been great in recent weeks. Leicester started the season poorly. Then the return of Johnny Evans seemed to solidify that back line. And Tielemans has really stepped up and delivered, particularly when James Maddison hasn't been great for the Foxes. But the bad news is Tielemans is now being ruled out. We've got no definitive timeline from Brendan Rodgers. Only that we know that it will be before Christmas. So we're looking at maybe mid-December for he's back. So that does change things ever so slightly. My expectation is we could see Leicester go with maybe a 3-4-1-2. Maddison sitting in behind Kelechi and Vardy, and maybe Soumare and Ndidi as that holding 2 players as that shield in front of that back 3.
Now, we talked about as well, Tielemans missing for Leicester, but also one player that might be a doubt for Chelsea, which has been instrumental lately, Mason Mount. You just talk us through basically what he's been going through, Ben, and what impact will his potential absence be?
Yeah, so Mason Mount has trained against. That's good news on that front. And of course, he was flagged as initially as an illness by Thomas Tuchel, and people sort of jumped to the conclusion that it was COVID related, which Tuchel sort of played back straight away and said no, it was an infection in his wisdom teeth, which he had surgery on. And people question the fact that how could you miss a game, just because you have a problem with your teeth? Well, it's the associated risk factors with that. The fact that he was missing training sessions, he wasn't able to eat, he wasn't able to hydrate, it disrupted his sleep pattern, and all of those influencing factors do increase the risk of injury incidents. And we know with Thomas Tuchel, if you're not at optimum levels, then he won't throw you back in there. But like I say, it's good news. Mason Mount has been training, so he should be in and around, or certainly in the manager's thoughts for a starting place.
Now, just going into the playing styles of the two sides, so Leicester have actually been really clinical when it comes to pressing teams and then getting shots away from high kind of pressure situations. But Chelsea have also conceded the fewest of this season. So, Rory, for you, are you confident in Chelsea's ability to counter that Leicester press?
Yes, I think that we can do a good job against Leicester, but there is something about Leicester that troubles me, and like I say, I worry that I've just got that fear because of the PTSD I'm suffering from what Leicester did to Chelsea last year, and it's very rare, almost never do I go into a game thinking that Chelsea aren't going to win. I'm one of those fans that's just convinced my team are going to win, almost to idiotic levels. And yet, for some reason, I've got a bad feeling about this one. I'm going for a draw here, Joe. It doesn't sit comfortably with me. I don't like myself doing this, but I am going to say that it's a draw.
Well, let's go over to our betting expert, Dan Jenkins. So what's your prediction for the match?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Rory. I think Chelsea haven't been as good as their results have suggested, and I think Leicester are improving. I think they've only lost one of the last 6 in the Premier League, and they are unbeaten in the last 3 league games against Chelsea at home. So I've gone for Leicester plus half a goal. I think that kind of evens things out, makes it fair. 2.10 with Mansion Bet.
So, of course, a draw or a win for Leicester, that will result in a winning bet. I think, Rory, we can confirm that you agree with Dan's bet there. Myself, I'm actually going against that. I feel like Chelsea should be too strong. And Ben, your prediction for the match as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think Chelsea will just have enough. I think it's going to be tight. 2-1. The loss of Tielemans is key for me for the Foxes. So, yeah, and the lift that Lukaku will hopefully bring being included in that matchday squad.
Great stuff. All right, let's move on to our quick fire games. The first of which we're going to look at is Aston Villa against Brighton. Of course, Steven Gerrard's first game in charge of the Villains. Now, we do have the betting odds available for you here. It is going to be pretty tight according to the bookies. It should be a pretty close one. But Dan, let's take it over to you and your best bet for the match.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think Villa are due a win. I'm going to back them to win each of their next 2 matches. The losing streak isn't going to last forever, and I think Brighton are the right opponents for them. Villa have only lost one of the last 12 matches against Brighton in all competitions, and I think Graham Potter's side are starting to slip. They haven't won a league match since September. They've only scored 4 in their last 5. I really like Villa here, so I've gone for them at 2.50 with Unibet.
Yeah, and for you, Rory, I mean, what do you see happening in this game? Do you think the home advantage will be key?
Yeah, I can't see a world where Villa lose, actually. I really can't. I think that Villa will abruptly end their losing streak. I think that they will make fairly light work out of Brighton, because I think the other thing that we sort of forget when we look at this Villa team, they're really good. They have some really gifted players. And Brighton, I feel like they're a little bit smoke and mirrors. I know they're doing well. I know they're higher up the table than anyone anticipated, but I feel like they are ready to plummet. They are coming down with the Christmas lights. So as soon as it fell like this, and Steven Gerrard's first game was against Brighton, I can see there being no other alternative aside from a Villa win, and I'm going Villa 2-0.
But Ben, you see it being a little bit closer, right?
Yeah, I'm not buying the Villa love in, and I'm not a big fan of Brighton either. I think it'll be a little tighter. They will stop the rot. I'm going for the draw. Key factors: Aston Villa cannot really defend set pieces. I think they've got the second worst in the Premier League this season. You're looking at the threat maybe of Lewis Dunk or a Shane Duffy coming from dead ball situations. The one maybe shining light for Villa supporters looking at this game, the absence of Robert Sanchez in the Brighton goal. Jason Steele comes in. Don't really know. We haven't seen a lot of him. He has been bigged up by Graham Potter on Thursday. But Sanchez has been massive since he's come into that Brighton side. So they lose him for a game following that challenge on Callum Wilson last time out.
But yeah, I'm putting Jason Steele actually in my fantasy lineup, so hopefully he doesn't do too well. I'm going for a Villa win in this one as well. So yeah, hopefully the home win will prevail. Next game we're going to look at is Burnley against Crystal Palace. Now, Dan, take us away with your best bet for this encounter.
Yeah, so I'm backing Burnley here. I think the value often comes from backing sides that are kind of flying under the radar against teams that are perhaps attracting a bit more attention with higher profile results. And I think that Manchester City win is slightly skewing the odds for Palace. Burnley are more quietly putting results together. They've only lost one of the last 6. They're scoring goals. And I think, as Ben will probably discuss, the injuries to Wacky Manderson, I think that may make a difference. He's formed such a good partnership with Mark Guehi that losing out on him will really hurt Palace here. I think Burnley look great value. I'm backing them at 2.90. That's with William Hill.
And Rory, you're supporting that bet, right?
I'm actually going for a Burnley win here. I think do you know what this stems from? I can't see Sean Dyche being relegated. And therefore, if people agree with me, if people think that Burnley will survive simply because of Dyche and the way that they play and their track record, then they're going to have to start accruing points at some point. So it's not really about Palace, but I just feel like Burnley, if they are to stay up, Palace at home is a fixture that they're going to have to win. And I think they'll stay up. I therefore think that they'll get a victory against Palace.
I'm going the complete opposite. I feel like Burnley, it's time for them to go. I feel like they should be getting relegated. And I feel like Crystal Palace should be too strong here. So I'm going for a Palace win. And I think, Ben, you're going a similar line of thinking.
I'm with you again, Joe. I mean, I think it'll be a horrible game to watch. I really do. I think that Burnley will make it very difficult. Defensively, they've got that low block. But Palace have been fantastic for me this season, particularly Conor Gallagher. Just referencing Dan's point about Anderson, he has been back on the training pitches, although he did miss out in the recent internationals. So Palace could be unchanged in that front three with Benteke, with Zaha, in Edward. They've been brilliant. So I really like them, and I fancy them to come away with a 1-0 victory.
All right, let's move on to the next game we're going to talk about. That is Newcastle against Brentford. Eddie Howe's first game in charge proper. Here, the odds again suggest it should be a pretty close encounter, really. I mean, 2.7 for Newcastle, 2.8 for Brentford. It's hard to really find some value, but Dan, I think you've got a decent pick in this one. Take us through it.
I've gone for Newcastle minus a quarter of a goal here. I think if they were playing any other side, then I probably wouldn't have, but I do fear for Brentford. Bringing it back to the point I made a few weeks ago, I think the goalkeeper David Raya has been a massive loss for them. They've conceded at least twice in the last 3 matches, and they're just not looking as comfortable at the back. These two clubs have rarely met, but Brentford have lost their last 5 away games against Newcastle. The new manager bounce may make a bit of a difference, but it's still the same group of players that have drawn 5 matches for Newcastle this season. That's why I've gone for a quarter of a goal, so at least you get something back if it finishes all square.
And Rory, how do you like the look of that bet?
I actually like that. I want to do that one. I've gone for a Newcastle 3-1 win. I can't see Newcastle. Struggling at all. But I'm going to change. I'm going to go with Dan's bet.
Yeah, and I fancy Newcastle as well. To be honest, again, the new manager bounce should be in favour for the home side here. But Ben, you're going a little bit more cautious, I think, as a Newcastle fan. Take us through your prediction.
Yeah, the only Geordie are sitting with splinters on his backside. I'm sitting on the fence again. I will happily take a point. Our time will come when we start picking up victories, but I think it's a difficult game. Brentford results haven't been great, but underlying data, they've still been producing results. Maybe Ivan Toney, Brian Bremo, a little bit unfortunate, being a little bit wasteful, taking their chances, and maybe that's reflected, like I say, in a couple of bad results. If they can mirror their early season data, then Newcastle are in for a really, really tough game.
I think, your prediction is a draw, right? So if you did place that same bet, then you'd get half your stake back if it does end the draw. But next, we're going to move on to Norwich's first game under Dean Smith. Of course, like we mentioned earlier in the show, it's a pretty strange encounter that Dean Smith comes up against Southampton again, 2 weeks running. I think it's the first time that's ever happened in top flight football. But Dan, take us through your selection for this match.
Yeah, new manager aside, it's not the most glamorous match of the weekend, is it? I don't think there'll be too many goals either. Only 2 sides have scored fewer goals in Southampton. I looked at going under in the goals market, but I settled for Norwich plus a quarter of a goal, back in a slight bounce. But I think this is going to be a likely draw, and I'm not fully confident, so pretty low stakes for this one.
Great stuff. And Ben, you're thinking of this one. You're sharing that view, right? You think Norwich could get a result?
Yeah, I just think, their first 3 points of the season, hopefully Dean Smith will follow that up and hopefully won't get the sack after, getting the win. So I think, a tight affair. I think it'll be terrible to watch, but I'm expecting the Canaries just to edge at 1-0.
And Rory, for you, are you expecting any kind of entertainment to come from this match?
Zero. But I do think that Norwich will get a result. I just think that the definition of a result for Norwich is different to what I would say a result is for most other teams in the Premier League. I think they will get a 1-1 draw.
And me, actually, I'm going the other side. I'm thinking Southampton will get the win here, so I'm going to go against Dan's advice. But again, we'll see how that turns out next week. But now we're going to move on to our next feature game, the big match of the weekend, Liverpool against Arsenal. So here, this is, like I say, the big match at Anfield, Liverpool against Arsenal. Plenty of intriguing, enthralling duels between these two in the past. Liverpool do go in as the odds-on favourites to win, but they have been decimated, I think it's fair to say, in regards to injuries. So, Ben, I just want to get a quick injury update from you. I mean, where are Liverpool at? You know, Mane's been out, but could be back. Just give us a rundown of the Liverpool squad.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. We could probably dedicate a show to Liverpool's injury list as it currently stands. You're right with Sadio Mane. Took a heavy knock to the ribs. Fortunately, imaging and further tests have given the player all clear. So he's training with the group. But at the time of recording, there are still question marks over Jordan Henderson. There's an adductor problem. He has been outside on the training pitches, but training away from the main group. James Milner, he's had a hamstring problem in recent weeks, again, training away from the main group. And that ties in with Harvey Elliott, who's out long term. So that brings up questions in midfield. Naby Keita also out. You know, so you may be looking at Fabinho to come in there. Curtis Jones, there was hope that he had recovered from what Jurgen Klopp referred to as a freak eye injury. But it's one of those ones where they can't put any kind of timeline on. They just said, we'll allow nature to take its course. And we don't know the specifics of that. It could be a scratch on the cornea. And in attack, you know, the other big loss is Roberto Firmino. Hamstring problem, nothing definitive from the club, but we're looking maybe around that 6-week mark, which would mean around mid-December. And that should ensure the likes of Mane, Salah and Diego Jota fill those 3 attacking places in the Reds lineup.
And how about from the international break? Andy Robertson as well, right? It was a potential doubt.
Yeah, so that was flagged up in the Denmark international. It's not as bad as first thought, which is the good news. He's 50-50 as it currently stands, but given what we know about hamstring injuries, which high recurrence rate, high re-injury rates, it could be that Tsimikas is thrown in there, at left back, given the great form that he had earlier in the season. But like I say, if Robinson is out of the lineup, it's certainly not a long-term problem.
And for you, Rory, just looking at Liverpool and their squad depth, I mean, how much do you think that these players could come in and replace the injured players? You know, does Klopp have to change the system given these injuries?
I think it's very difficult, isn't it? Because they're so system reliant. And I just can't understand it, what's going on with Liverpool. When you look at the table now, if Arsenal get a decent result, if Arsenal manage to beat Liverpool, they're going to leapfrog them in the league. When you think about how Arsenal started the season and how Liverpool did, I remember saying on this show, I think Liverpool are looking as good as they've ever looked under Klopp. And yet that result against West Ham just before the international break has really hit them hard. And it's now got to the stage where, look, under normal circumstances, if Liverpool had won the games that you'd expect them to win, maybe Brentford, maybe West Ham, a point against Arsenal in the form they're in isn't the end of the world. But I feel like now Liverpool have to win this game. And look, you know, Ben flags the injuries there, and they are significant, and they're going to have an impact. But it's gone beyond that. Liverpool now need to get a victory, sort of irrespective of how they go about doing it. It's not whether they can do it or not. For me, it isn't even about the squad. I just have so much faith in Jurgen Klopp that I believe that he will find a way, and I therefore think that Liverpool will bounce back to winning ways against this one. I think it will be a thriller, but I think Liverpool win it.
I mean, yeah, you look at Arsenal, though, they are unbeaten in their last 8 Premier League games. So after that start, like you mentioned, I mean, they have been getting results. Maybe not the most attractive style of football, but they have still been on a bit of momentum at least. But Ben, I just want to flag a little potential injury doubt for Arsenal. Can you just talk us through about Aubameyang? Could he potentially be out?
Yeah, so good news. Aubameyang is back at London Colony training. There were concerns when he was omitted from the Gabon squad for their last World Cup qualifying game, whether that was an agreement he had in place with the club or whether he had picked up a knock against Libya in the game before we had seen him getting treatment. Fortunately, yeah, it looks as if it was, the former. He's back, he's training, and that looks to be absolutely fine. The only major concern that Arsenal have going into this game is Thomas Partey. Now, he missed out in game week 11 due to a tight groin, and he didn't join up with the national team because of that muscular issue. Now, he is on the training pitches, but it's one of those ones that, maybe Mikel Arteta will have to make a very late call, maybe as late as Saturday morning on that. You'll give him every opportunity, just given his influence and importance to that Arsenal team.
All right, I think that sums up the injury issues pretty nicely for both teams. I want to take it over to Dan now for the best bet for the match, coming from the betting expert staff.
Yeah, I'm backing Liverpool to win, but I think this is probably Arsenal's best chance of winning at Anfield that they've had for a very long time, and I did consider backing them. I like Arsenal plus half a goal at 2.8, but it's just too hard to ignore Liverpool, the form they're in, Mohamed Salah. With the injuries and Arsenal's improving form, I don't think it'll be a 2 or 3 goal win for the hosts like it has been so often at Anfield in the last few years. I think it'll be a lot tighter, the match. But I just think Liverpool will have enough to get the win, so I'm backing them at 1.51. That's with VBet.
And for you, Rory, as well, like you mentioned it could be a thriller. What kind of scoreline do you expect at Anfield?
I think Liverpool are going to win it 3-2.
And I'm going for a Liverpool win as well. Again, I feel like they will be too strong. And Ben, just to confirm your prediction for the match.
Yeah, I'm going for a Liverpool win, 2-0. I think Mo Salah will definitely get on the score sheet. He was rested for Egypt, came on as a sub on Monday, so he'll be fully refreshed and loves a goal against the Gunners. I think he's had 11 involvements and 9 appearances against them in the Premier League, so I'm fully expecting him to bang.
Great stuff. Now let's move on to some more quick-fire predictions. So the next game we're going to look at West Ham against Man United. Now here, I know Dan, you're going for a bit of an interesting bet looking at the both teams to score market. Can you just take us through your feelings, why you think either side will keep a clean sheet in this one?
Watford, I think they've only managed to find a net in 4 of their 11 Premier League games this season. So even if they don't, then it's Manchester United, you can't rely on them to score these days, can you? Interestingly as well, this is the one with the two managers that the favourites to leave next. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the big favourite in that market, as he has been for a while, but Claudio Ranieri is joint second to leave at 9.0. He's only been in the job for a few weeks, but I think people know what Watford are like. They've had about 400 managers in the last 10 years, and I actually really like that bet as well.
So yeah, potential value pick there for Ranieri to be the next manager to go. But Rory, what do you think this one? How do you think it will play out? Do you think Man United will find some form?
I think no, not necessarily. I mean, I think that they will probably win the game, but I think that they are in a real difficult position now. And I think that whatever the result at Vicarage Road, it doesn't really change anything, does it? The question marks surrounding Manchester United, the question marks about the manager, the personnel, Paul Pogba's contract, there's so much going on at that club. Look, I think they'll beat Watford. I think it will be tight. I think they'll beat Watford 2-1.
I think, Ben, you're going for a similar scoreline, right?
Fraction.
Yeah. Yeah, Ben, you're going for a similar scoreline, right?
I am, yes, I'm in agreement there with Rory. I think it will be 2-1. I cannot see Manchester United keeping a clean sheet. I like Shaw, I like King, but I think Ronaldo will come to the party and deliver. When Ollie has his back against the wall, they always seem to pull out a result, and I think they will this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going for a similar line of thinking. I'm actually going for a 4-1 win for United. So sorry, Dan, we're not going for a clean sheet for United in this one, but let's see how we get on. Now, the next game we're going to talk about is Wolves against West Ham. Now, let's take a look at how the odds are shaping up for this one. So West Ham, of course, unbelievable so far this season, flying high in third position, and do go in as the favourites to beat Wolves as well. But are we expecting a bit of an entertaining game at Molineux, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, this was a tough one to call. I went for over on goals because that's usually good advice whenever West Ham are playing. They've had over 2.5 goals in 73% of their matches this season, which is the second highest in the Premier League behind Liverpool. I considered backing them to win with a draw no bet at 1.78, which I think everyone would have agreed with, but I just think there's more value in the goals market.
And Ben, what kind of game are you expecting here at Molineux?
I think it'll be entertaining. I think it will be tight. I'm expecting West Ham just to edge it, but the team news will be key around that West Ham lineup. We know we've lost Ogbonna, so that means Dawson's coming in. Thomas Souček was absent, or certainly he wasn't named in the starting 11 for the Czech Republic during the break. No reports of an injury there, but just interesting the fact that it was a World Cup qualifying game, that they needed to do well in, and there was no minutes on the pitch, so maybe that's injury related. And of course, as always, the Mikel Antonio returning from his involvement with Jamaica. But that all said, if everybody's there, then I think West Ham 2-1.
Oh, and what a goal it was as well by Antonio in midweek. If you saw that, it was an unbelievable strike.
Yeah.
But Rory, your prediction for the game, you're going for a slightly more cagey affair, it looks like.
Yeah, I think West Ham will win the game. I think that West Ham will win the game fairly convincingly. I've gone for West Ham 2-0. But I do think that Bruno Lage has done an incredible job. Like, I think it's amazing, quite the turnaround, because you can now have a conversation about where Wolves will finish in the league, and you're not crazy if you suggest that they could make the Europa League, and that is not how it was looking. At one point, we were debating whether they were potential relegation fodder. So I'm very impressed by Wolverhampton Wanderers, but I just think that David Moyes is untouchable at the moment. I think he'll get another win.
Yeah, same. I'm going for another West Ham win. I can't believe it's going that way, but I feel like they are just showing that form. Don't show any signs of slowing down either, but I do expect them to win 2-0. So just going under that 2.5 goals line. Now, next, we're going to look at the game between Tottenham and Leeds. So here, it looks like Spurs will be the heavy favourites to win this one, given the home advantage, and Leeds is kind of roller coaster in terms of form. But Dan, take us through your best bet for this week. You're pretty much your most confident bet of the week, right?
Yeah, I really like Tottenham here. At the start of the show, I mentioned the low win percentage when new managers take charge of their second games. That only really refers to those that actually won their first game and they just can't string the results together. The majority of managers who win their second game actually fail to win their first, as Antonio Conte did at Tottenham before the international break. They've been struggling for shots on target. I think they haven't had any in their last 2 Premier League games. No side has gone 3 straight league matches without a shot on target since Opta started recording that stat in 2003. So that's going to change here against a Leeds side that hasn't scored more than once in any of their Premier League games this season. So I'm backing Spurs in the 1x2. That's at 1.77 with Betway.
And Rory, after the international break, is Harry Kane back, or is it just all smoke and mirrors given the fact the opposition he was playing against?
I don't think we can read too much into it. But it's still, he's playing in those games, so he would certainly rather score than not. And, to the company that he's keeping now with regard to England goal scorers is huge. I think he's up there with Lineker now. So that's going to definitely inspire him. That's going to give him confidence. And going back to then play for Antonio Conte, I can't see anything other than the Tottenham win here either. I never really want to talk about Tottenham winning. The only thing that makes it slightly palatable to me is that it's against Leeds. So every cloud.
Now, myself, I'm actually going for a draw in this one. I think it will be a little bit tighter than maybe the bookies are suggesting. But Ben, you're fancying a Spurs win, if I'm right in thinking.
No, Joe, you're wrong. I'm sharing your optimism here. I'm going for the 1-1 draw. Again, I really do like Antonio Conte, but I think it'll take time. And we've seen when he was at Chelsea, he had a pre-season and a better squad of players to work with. To implement his ideas. He hasn't had that at Tottenham. There's been a lot of players away during that international break. So how much good work will he be to get in on the training ground, before this game? Limited. Of course, Harry Kane could come back and bang and it transform that team. But, based on what we've seen so far this season, I'm not confident. And I just think Marcelo Bielsa can eke out a point and he'll take that 1-1 draw.
All right, well, let's move on to the final feature match of the game week, and that is Man City against Everton. So the final game we're going to talk about in focus is Man City against Everton. City, of course, go into this one the heavy odds-on favourites. Everton out as close to 20-1 almost to get the win. Looking at City's passing as well, they're just instrumental. I mean, they're unbelievable when it comes to keeping possession of the ball. But Rory, can you give us your kind of thoughts about basically how this game is going to go and how Pep comes up against Benitez?
Yeah, I think it's a mismatch, to be honest. I can't see anything other than Man City absolutely trouncing Everton. I've gone for 4-0, but I could have easily said 5 or even more. I think it will be huge from Man City, and I think this is their moment. When I was talking earlier about the vulnerability to Chelsea, when I combine that with the weight and belief that I put in this Guardiola Man City team, I feel like, look, in 3 or 4 more game weeks, it wouldn't surprise me if Man City is sitting with a 5-point cushion at the top of the league. I think that they are going to go from strength to strength. Now, they're likely to put together a win at some point in the season, aren't they? Where they end up going, they'll win 11 in a row or something mad like that. And I feel like that could be starting now. And there's no reason why it doesn't start against Everton. They have been looking dodgy lately. And Everton's fixtures now really kick into gear. I think they have a run of like the worst possible fixtures that you could have. So it will be very interesting to see how it goes for Everton over the next 3 or 4 weeks. But for Man City, I just think that they're going to blitz them.
Well, talking about vulnerability as well. I mean, the Everton injury crisis, what you can talk about. So Ben, give us an update as well. Which key players are out and how instrumental are those players that are missing to this Everton team?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I think the big one for me is Abdul Doucouré. We know that he's recovering at the moment from a stress fracture to the foot. It was hoped that he may be back for this game, but he's just in light training at the moment and still looks some way off. No official announcement from the club on Tom Davies, but he's been pictured with his right knee in a protective brace. That suggests that there may be some ligament damage there. And what that means is you have Alan in midfield, and then you're going to have to sit somebody like maybe Fabien Delph or even Jean-Philippe Gaboumin next to him. And neither of those players are fully match fit after a significant period on the sidelines. And of course, we're already with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And that means Rafa maybe, may have to go for Rondon, Richarlison, and with maybe Damari Gray or Andros Townsend sitting in behind out of position. However, the silver lining of the cloud is the Toffees should have Yerry Mina back at the heart of defence. However, what I would say about Pep and how he may align his team up, he's been going with the false 9 at the moment. Predominantly that's been Phil Foden, but he has been throwing in Raheem Sterling in there. And, those are the types of players that Yerry Mina will not like to play against. Small, nimble, quick, explosive movements, dropping deep. So the question will be, whether Everton will adopt that low block to try and counter it, or whether they will try and maybe put somebody like Yerry Mina on him that will pull him into places that he'll not feel comfortable with.
Now, yeah, again, another kind of silver lining to Everton's cloud is they're actually, once they do get a chance, they're actually really high up there in the league in terms of big chance conversion. But, I mean, Dan, talk us through maybe how are they going to get those chances against this City side? And obviously, who is then going to go and score the goals for you, do you think?
I hate this match from a betting point of view. There's absolutely no value in Manchester City. They're 1.17 to get the win, but as you said, Everton do have very good chance conversion rate in big chance conversion, whereas City's is very low in comparison. And I just think that the odds are a little too skewed towards the hosts, considering this isn't first against 20th in the table. This is second against 11th. There's only 8 points difference. I've gone for City +2, but it's with a very, very heavy heart. I'm not putting my neck on the line. I've got really low stakes. I think my little toe is on the line, not my neck.
So, of course, yeah, Everton +2 there. So if it is a 2-0 win for City, your bet will be a push. But I think, Rory, you're going for a bigger win than that, right? You're going for a City much higher than 2-goal victory, right?
Yeah, I've gone for 4-0, but I really do think that it could be anything. It could be a really embarrassing, difficult day for Rafael Benitez.
And how about for you, Ben, as well?
Yeah, I'm with Rory, but I'm a little bit more conservative. I think 3-0, but this will purely be down to the fact that Pep will be looking ahead to upcoming games, midweek Champions League tie against PSG, and then West Ham the following week. I think they'll get the points in the bag, get the 2-0, maybe take the foot off the gas, get the third, close shop, bring a few players on. Good night.
I mean, yeah, for me, if you're relying on Fabien Delph, then you don't hold much hope. So sorry, Everton fans watching this, but I'm going for a 2-0 City win as well. I do feel it could be quite close. So of course, if it does finish 2-0 and you place that bet, it will be a push. But let's sum up kind of the picks and the best bets for the game week, courtesy of Dan Jenkins from Betting Expert. So there you go on screen. Plenty to get stuck into this week. Plenty of interesting encounters as well. And of course, if you do place a bet on these, we do ask that you gamble responsibly. But for now, everyone, that wraps it up for the big stage this week. Rory Jennings, Ben Dinnery, Dan Jenkins, thanks a lot. We'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Great stuff. And like I say, if you do place your own bets, then please do gamble responsibly. And if you fancy your own chances at placing your own tips, then head on over to bettingexpert.com, where you can post your own predictions and potentially win cash prizes every week. But that wraps it up. Thanks for watching The Big Stage, and we'll be back next week.